Welcome back to Spoiler Free Wrestling, everyone, and this is your daily Spoiler Free Wrestling News Update, where we go through all the news of the day that happened in professional wrestling, but we omit any story or any reports which would spoil future storylines, angles, or match results. All right, let's get right to it. The top story on our site right now is Cody back at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, filing for several more trademarks. 3 WCW pay-per-view names have been filed for trademark by Cody Runnels. Those are Battle Bowl, Bunkhouse Stampede, and Bash at the Beach. So we put out a separate video on this where we talk a little bit about all the trademarks that Cody has filed in the last week and a half, including the American Dream, the American Nightmare, Dusty Rhodes, the Prince of Wrestling, and the 3 pay-per-view names I just mentioned. Now, in terms of why are these the 3 pay-per-view names that Cody has filed to trademark, I did a little bit more digging since the first video we put out. Some more Dusty Rhodes-esque pay-per-view names are trademarked to WWE. The 2 biggest I can think of are the Great American Bash. WWE filed to continue that trademark on September 18th in 2018. So 17 days after All In, WWE decided, hey, we should make sure we own the name The Great American Bash. WWE also owns the name Starrcade, as they do put on a house show every year under that name. They also have recently acquired the name War Games from MLW. If you notice, WWE has been running a War Games match in NXT, but it's been War Games, all one word. That's because Major League Wrestling owned the trademark to War Games, 2 words. They had held a War Games match in the early 2000s during their first run as a promotion. So that's sort of the big news, is Cody continuing to register names that are in some way associated to things his family is linked to. Those WCW pay-per-view names are all linked to his dad. And it should be noted that this is not All Elite Wrestling filing for these trademarks. This is Cody filing for them under his own name. So we actually joked, this is a good time. If you've got about $20 to spend on a joke, you can go out and file to trademark some wrestling pay-per-view names yourself if you want to. I threw out a joke on Twitter that I dare anybody to go and register the pay-per-view name December to Dismember. If you've got $20 to spend on a joke, you can own the trademark rights to the December to Dismember pay-per-view name. So Bash at the Beach was just a trademark WWE decided that they can let go. Something they didn't decide for Starrcade or the Great American Bash. I thought that was odd, considering Bash at the Beach was a pay-per-view that's historically significant when you consider it was the big, it was where Hogan was revealed as the 3rd member. It's a very famous pay-per-view that is associated with the Monday Night War era very strongly. I found it odd that WWE would just let that trademark go. Actually, maybe they never had it, because they've never held a Bash at the Beach pay-per-view. But they would own WCW's trademark, so all they would have to do is re-register it. And they just didn't. So I guess all that Cody's doing, he's just typing names into the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office and finding out what things linked to him, his family, and his dad, he can own the rights to. He's filed to trademark Dusty Rhodes. He's filed to trademark all of these names. Maybe WWE should think about giving Cody the last name Rhodes back. But anyway, that's the top story on the site. We go into a little bit more detail about that in the other video. We also talk about trademarks which were discovered during research into Cody's story. I came across some one particular trademark which was filed for last week by Rey Mysterio. He filed to trademark the term Prince Mysterio, which is similar to filings he submitted late last year for the term Principe Mysterio. And I found it pretty interesting that Mysterio filed for Prince Mysterio last week, and then this week, his son Dominic is on WWE programming. He was involved in a segment where Rey announced that he would be facing Samoa Joe for the United States Championship at WrestleMania. Rey Mysterio has also trademarked the term like G-Mote, so like goat, but with Mysterio in there. And that's for clothing and toy purposes. All right, on to some stories now which we haven't covered in an earlier video. And All Elite Wrestling has added a new wrestler to their women's division. That wrestler's name is Sadie Gibbs. Now, Sadie is not that experienced of a wrestler. She's done some tours in Stardom, and she's done some, and she's worked in the UK as well. However, she has not made enough of a dent or wrestled enough matches to have a bio page on Cage Match, or I'm not even sure if Pro Wrestling Database is around anymore. But she hasn't wrestled, if she's wrestled a lot of matches, she's been doing it under the radar. But she did do a tour of Stardom where she was said to have been very popular with fans. She's obviously got a very big physical presence. She has a background in CrossFit, gymnastics, MMA, and she was reported to have received a WWE tryout in early 2017 by the women's wrestling website Squared Circle Sirens. She is a personal trainer. She's worked as a fitness model. She's competed at a high level in track and field. She runs her own fitness personal training website called Sadie Gibbs Fitness. And All Elite Wrestling has brought her on. We know that they have been scouting Stardom, that they've wanted to bring in a lot of the women wrestlers from Stardom, and it will be Kenny Omega and Brandy Rhodes, who are the ones mainly in control of the scouting of female talents for AEW. So right now, the only women's match scheduled for Double or Nothing is the triple threat between Kylie Rae, Nyla Rose, and Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. So Sadie Gibbs signing a contract, and she's coming into AEW. And Asuka will defend her SmackDown Women's Championship at WrestleMania. She had sort of seemed to have become a bit of an afterthought there, but WWE has confirmed that there will be a number one contenders match for the SmackDown Women's Championship next week on Raw. It will be a fatal four-way. Wait, who the fuck is in this match? Well, they have not announced it. Okay, so the company has been teasing a direction between these two have to go. Oh, okay, so is it gonna be? I thought it was a fatal four-way match. Fatal four-way featuring Mandy Rose, Sonya Deville. Who else is gonna be in this? And it is going to be, sorry about that, Carmella, Naomi, Mandy Rose, and Sonya Deville going against each other in a fatal four-way. The winner will face Asuka at WrestleMania. Now, one guy who's not going to WrestleMania is Mustafa Ali. And I guess he's been getting a lot of stuff on social media, people asking him about how he goes and how Mustafa Ali has to be removed from the Elimination Chamber match because he's got a concussion. Kofi Kingston steps in. The crowd goes crazy for Kofi Kingston. And now Kofi, well, he lost a gauntlet match on SmackDown last night. But, you know. We'll see what happens with Kofi Kingston, but I guess some have been asking Mustafa Ali if he feels as though he sort of missed his opportunity with this ill-timed concussion. He sent this out on Twitter recently. He goes, "My dark time allowed someone else to shine. As much as it will haunt me for the rest of my career on the opportunity I missed out on, the fact that someone so deserving is getting the recognition he deserves makes it right. This was no accident. This was destiny." I think Mustafa Ali's got a lot of time left in his career to do something as cool as what Kofi is doing now. And I don't think what's happening for Kofi now would happen to Mustafa Ali. And again, like, Ali's only 32 years old, right? And 32 now is you're just basically getting started. I mean, just the way like wrestlers are wrestling so deep into their 40s now. I mean, he could have easy 15 years left on his career. Kofi's been in WWE for 11 years, and much of the reason he's getting the reaction that he is right now is because he has been in WWE so long, and he's been somebody that the fans have, like, he's never been a bad guy, eh? Like, do you ever remember Kofi Kingston turning heel in 11 years? Straight good. Oh, well, I mean, when New Day was a heel, I guess he was a heel. But I think much of the reaction that Kofi is getting is because of his tenure in wrestling. So I don't think Mustafa Ali would be generating the same response. I think fans like Mustafa Ali, but I think this story about Kofi Kingston coming in, it's not that it's this young baby face coming to take on Daniel Bryan. The story is that here's this guy who's been in the company 11 years. Everybody likes him. Everybody else had kind of assumed that he was sort of someone who would never win a world championship either. And the term B+ player gets thrown in there because Kofi is a guy who has entertaining matches, does a lot of great stuff, but there's never been any real push to get him in that main event level in the world title mix. I don't think he's ever been in the world title mix, really. Maybe if you go back nearly a decade to what was going on during his rivalry with Randy Orton, that's probably when he was maybe the closest. But even then, he wasn't really that close. So I think so much of the Kofi storyline that's striking a chord with fans is that a lot of it, we know, is really happening to the performer, And yes, championships, I mean, the difference between having been a world champion and having not been a world champion seems to be a big deal to a lot of wrestlers. Like, I remember Roddy Piper talked about how the fact that he was never WWE champion bothered him, and that he was never WCW champion bothered him. And Jake Roberts, was the other thing. He was like, no, it never bothered me that I was never world champion. I never needed that title. I never needed the tool, But at the end of the day, even though it is predetermined and the championships aren't real, I think fans know that for Kofi Kingston, the performer, it would mean something. And that it's them that's giving it to him, because he was never supposed to be in the Elimination Chamber match. He was obviously never supposed to continue on in this role past the Elimination Chamber match. But the fans were so into him that it changed the storyline. Like, very similar to WrestleMania 30 and Daniel Bryan, except for it's not the featured storyline going on in WWE right now. So it's this weird thing in wrestling where, yeah, it's not a legitimate accomplishment in terms of, like, if it's scripted and predetermined. But I think a lot of the fans that are in the arenas chanting for Kofi over and over again, they're doing it because they want that achievement to be given almost to the performer over the character, if that makes sense. And I think it's a cool storyline. And it'll end up being the highlight of Kofi Kingston's career. And people recognize that too. That what's going on with Kofi, is the most important storyline he'll ever have. So there's that too. That you are watching something that's history. So Mustafa Ali, definitely having a good attitude about being replaced in the Elimination Chamber match. I just don't think that Mustafa Ali would have gone from the Elimination Chamber match onto this road to WrestleMania that Kofi has. But there's a lot of time left in Mustafa Ali's career for something like that to happen. Alexa Bliss also took part in an interview recently that came out today. And, I mean, it was fairly fluff. But there was one comment that I think warrants some discussion. So, Alexa Bliss hardly wrestles anymore. And she was, along with Charlotte Flair, she has wrestled half her matches on the main roster while wearing a championship belt. I mean, she's from a storyline perspective, she's an extremely successful wrestler. But she hasn't really wrestled on a regular schedule for a while. She's not involved in the title mix. She's hosting a Moment of Bliss where basically she flirts with EC3. I think she did that once. I don't know. But she's kind of been taken out of the ring. And everybody has been saying, well, what's going on here? Is she cleared to wrestle? And the fact is, Bliss has not wrestled on WWE programming since the night after the Royal Rumble. So that's almost... Okay, that's not that long ago. That's almost 2 months ago. However, she has been wrestling on live events. She's wrestled 2 weeks. Yeah, she's done 2 weekends of house shows, doing 3 matches a weekend. She lost 3 matches to Natalya on February 22nd, 23rd, 24th. And she teamed with Lacey Evans. Oh, at a house show in Toronto that I did not go to. And lost to Dana Brooke and Natalya. That was 2 shows, not this weekend, but the weekend before. And she wrestled a live show. She did a double dipper on March 9th. And wrestled a no contest with Natalya. Well, that was probably like a no contest that then led into the tag match. Probably Lacey Evans did the thing where she just walked out. I tried to explain to her, I was watching SmackDown. My girlfriend was in the room. And Lacey Evans just walked out during the Boss and Hug and Iconics match. And I brought up how, I wish real sports would take after wrestling sometimes. I wish, you'd be watching a Yankees versus Orioles game, and then out of nowhere, the Boston Red Sox just come out through the bullpen and sort of do a circle around the infield and then just leave. It would certainly build up a lot of anticipation for the next Red Sox-Yankees series. All right. So just before we go, there are 2 shows on the WWE Network today. Well, start things off. The New Japan Cup continued this morning. However, I haven't watched the matches yet. Right now it's 3:30 on Wednesday. I would imagine many of you haven't watched the matches yet. So we'll leave that for tomorrow, or maybe we'll just cover the quarterfinals totally on Friday. But we'll start with a rundown of what's going on in terms of the WWE Network today. NXT UK and NXT Florida will both have shows tonight. However, not much is announced for either show. For NXT UK, which is actually, I guess, airing right now, Tyler Bate from Mustache Mountain is going to take on one half of the grizzled young veterans and UK Tag Team Champions, James Drake. And that is the only announced match for the NXT UK show today. And then that's more than what's announced for tonight's episode of NXT, where the only thing advertised is that Triple H is going to address the state of the NXT Championship. And so this would have occurred at the most recent set of NXT tapings. So we're going into the next set of NXT tapings with this one. And if you don't know, Tommaso Ciampa was trying to work with an injured neck. Got too much for him. He had to go in for surgery. He is gone for an extended period of time, unfortunately. And so Triple H tonight is going to let us know what is going on with the NXT Championship. And it looks like that is pretty much all the news that happened in pro wrestling today. So I want to ask that if you guys like this content, want to see more of it, please click the up button and hit the share button so that more people can find this show. Thanks again, everybody. I'm the Guy from Spoiler Free Wrestling.